Hey everyone, and welcome to your carrier update presented by PowerFleet. So tender rejection rates sort of taken a little break from plummeting like we expected to. I've talked about this for the last couple of days if you've been watching, but it is very interesting to break this down into the separate modes of transportation. So we have the normal tender rejection rate for the average of the country right here in blue, 7.6%, slightly up day over day, about 3 basis points from 7.57 yesterday. But if you look at this green line down here underneath it, that's your dry van tender rejection rate, and it is falling right now, 7.11%. It's slightly down day over day, still horizontal, a little bit more horizontal than we expect this time of year. But if you look up here in the orange line right here, this is the reefer tender rejection rate. So reefer rejections just spiking right now, coming out of this little trough that we normally see this time of year to 17.16% as average for the United States. So where are all these tenders being rejected? You look here, this is the weekly change in reefer rejections by individual market. So the Midwest right here, which is normally a pretty big hotbed for reefer activity, all red. So weekly change means that this part of the country showing loosening capacity conditions. Reefer loads are being covered a little bit more frequently here versus this time last week. Nashville cooling off a little bit. Here around the Charlotte area, we talked about this yesterday, Charlotte market here in Raleigh, North Carolina, reefer rejections are increasing week over week. And we have little isolated pockets of rejection rates increasing week over week throughout the East Coast. Savannah market, not a big market for reefer. Don't expect to get anything huge out of there. So the reefer rejection rate showing a little bit more activity, but the volumes are not necessarily proportionate to that. So don't take too much into that. So some of the bigger markets for reefer rates, or reefer loads I should say, are sitting out here in the West Coast, and I want to target some of those today. The Salt Lake City market and the Phoenix market here, I'm going to point those out here in a minute. So Salt Lake City showing one of the biggest increases year over year in terms of reefer load, reefer demand. So right here in the blue, you've got the reefer outbound tender volume index. And you can see here in the last several months, we've really picked up a lot of volumes, going all the way up to 68.93 on the reefer tender volume index for the market. And then reefer rejection rates have been slightly elevated out of this market versus the summer, which is what we consider the traditional peak for reefer activity because of all the produce shipments, and it's hot outside. People are having a lot more beverage consumption. All that kind of stuff needs to be taken care of in the summer. But over the winter, we need protection from freeze and other things to consider, especially going on those reefer loads. So Salt Lake market is one of the biggest growing markets in the country in terms of reefer demand overall. Reefer rejection rates are slightly elevated and continue to increase week over week, 32.66%. So the Phoenix market, one of my favorite markets to talk about in the winter because of the winter produce season. So I have reefer outbound tender volumes and reefer outbound tender rejection index right here. So the reefer volumes right here, again, not a huge outbound market for reefer contracted freight, but still we're watching these contracted reefer volumes increase significantly as it relates to the market itself. 17.66 is not a huge number, but it is significantly up from where it was previously. And this is because winter produce is starting to push right now. For about 3 months out of the year, Yuma, Arizona becomes the salad bowl, if you will, of the United States. All the cruciferous vegetables, lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, all that stuff comes out of that area, and it creates a slight disruption here. And you can see reefer rejection rates spiking up to 11.38%. So if you are a reefer carrier, you do have some options here in this cool part of the year. And that'll do it for the carrier update.
The comprehensive logistics offerings from PowerFleet cover in-cab ELD, fleet management, trailer tracking, cargo monitoring, and tracking other assets such as chassis and intermodal containers. Power up your operations with PowerFleet.